Hello, I'm Chip Lekberg, and today I'm interviewing Mr. Beacham about his experiences in World War II. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Sam Beacham. I live at Lake Forest Place in Lake Forest.
All right. My first question for you was, what was life like for you up until you went to college?
I guess it was kind of idyllic. At least that's the way it seemed after the war came. I grew up in a small city in South Carolina. I had two older brothers, much older, so I was really kind of treated as at least they thought I was treated as an only child. So I had a very happy growing up. Went to high school, finished high school in the city.
And so, what was life like for you when you got to college?
Well, it was a lot of fun. I entered college in the fall of 1940, and the World War II was looming for us, but I didn't have enough sense to join the Naval ROTC unit that had been established at the university. And I joined a fraternity and had a very active social life.
So what did you graduate with?
I graduated with my degree was a Bachelor of Education. I had majored in English. With a major in English and a minor in naval science, because I did join the Naval ROTC unit in my sophomore year.
So after you graduated, you were a commissioned officer, right?
I was graduated and commissioned the same day in February of 1944.
So what were your first duties that you had to do when you became an officer?
Well, I was sent to the Naval Operating Base in Norfolk for further assignment and training, and one of the training assignments was I was sent out to Ohio State University at Columbus, Ohio, for a course in aircraft and ship recognition. It was a course that had been developed by the psychology department at Ohio State and consisted of flashing silhouettes of various aircraft and both enemy and our own, so that we could recognize them within a 50th of a second.
Mm-hmm. And so I understand that you were also sent aboard a destroyer?
I went back to Norfolk and was sent to San Francisco for further assignment, and then out to Pearl Harbor for further assignment. And from there I was assigned to the USS Anderson destroyer and flown out to the Admiralty Islands to join the destroyer.
What was life like for you? Could you walk us through like the average day that you had, or any day you spent on the USS Anderson?
I was given the title of Assistant First Lieutenant. The First Lieutenant on the ship is responsible for the hull. There are other officers on the ship who are responsible for gunnery. There's a gunnery officer and an engineering officer and a communications officer. Mm-hmm. So I was assigned as assistant to the First Lieutenant, which meant we were to see that the ship was kept in clean and neat and working condition.
So, can you describe the day when your ship got hit by the Zero, like leading up to it, what, if anything seemed off, or if it just seemed like a normal day before that?
Well, we were part of the flotilla that took MacArthur back to the Philippines, and after we had put him ashore in the Leyte Gulf, the next day we were sent down to parole in a small bay with another destroyer to protecting ships that were unloading supplies on the beaches. My battle station was on the forecastle deck of the ship, under the bridge, and we were at general quarters all day, which means we were ready to go into battle if you have to. And we had just heard about the kamikazes. They had just become active, and so we were alert to them and a little anxious about them.
Yeah.
And during the day, a couple of Zeros, Japanese fighters, appeared on the horizon and would kind of cruise around outside of range. And about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I saw this Zero turn towards us and head towards us. And I was convinced he was heading to try to land on us, which he did. I ran around under the superstructure to get as much steel between him and me as I could. He came in from the stern and slid up the port deck and exploded and fell overboard. But he managed to wipe out our midships repair party of about 20 sailors. The ship just ran over them.
What was the state of the ship after it had been hit? How was everybody reacting to it?
Well, we had lost not only our midships repair party, but we had lost the ship's doctor. He was killed. He happened to come out on deck at the wrong moment, and he was killed, and the chief pharmacist's mate was killed. So we had no one to treat our wounded. So we had the other destroyers sent their ship's doctor over to treat the wounded. The shrapnel had, when the plane exploded, shrapnel had gone through the deck and severed our steering cables, so we were not able to steer the ship. So we had to get that repaired and treat the wounded.
And after that, after the ship got hit, did she have to sail back somewhere to get repaired?
Yeah. Oh yes. We repaired the steering, treated the wounded, buried the dead, and headed back to Pearl Harbor for repairs. When we got to Pearl Harbor, the Pearl was full of bigger ships that had been hit by kamikazes, including the Franklin, carrier Franklin. I had a first cousin on the carrier Franklin, and went over to see if he had survived, and he hadn't, which was, of course, terribly upsetting to me. We had grown up together and were good friends, and I of course, couldn't write home what had happened. But Pearl Harbor was so full of bigger ships, they sent us back to the States for repair. And we were repaired in the Hunters Point shipyard outside of San Francisco.
And how long did the repairs last?
The ship was in the yard for 5 months, primarily because there were other bigger ships there too being repaired, and we were low on the priority list. During that 5 months, I was sent back out to Pearl Harbor for further training, and I went through a course in fighter director training, which is directing airplanes around the ship in a battle. And while I was at Pearl, the ship was released from the yard and was sent up to the Aleutians. So I was flown back to the States and up to the Aleutians and rejoined the ship in the Aleutians.
And where are the Aleutians located?
The Aleutians are a string of islands that come out of the southwestern coast of Alaska and string out for several hundred miles towards Japan.
All right. And during your time, during the war, did you ever get any leave to go see your family back at home?
Oh yes, when we got back to the States for the repairs in Hunters Point, the ship's crew was given leave, and I got leave to go back home for New Year's of 1945. And I flew from San Francisco to Spartanburg, South Carolina, on American Airlines DC-3s. It took 24 hours. We flew from San Francisco to Los Angeles, from Los Angeles to Phoenix, from Phoenix to Big Spring, Texas, from Big Spring to Little Rock, Arkansas, from Arkansas to Atlanta, and then to Spartanburg. It was a wonderful to be back home so soon after having left. I left in August, and I was back home for New Year's. The Battle of the Bulge in Europe was going on, and I had a brother who was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and we knew that he was in the Bulge. So it was a tense time at home. The letters that he had been sending weekly had stopped arriving. He did survive and lived to be 83 years old.
That's good. So how did your family react to being able to see you again after not
Well,
being
of course, they were overjoyed. My mother had put me on the train for San Francisco in August, knowing she would never see me again. And here I was back home for New Year's.
Well, thank you for giving me this interview.
You are certainly welcome, Chip. Nice to meet you.